Cheetah is preparing to pounce into Ukraine. Among the long list of military equipment that the West promised to supply to Ukraine so that it could repel Russian aggression, there's also the German Gepard, translated as Cheetah, self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, SPOG. Ukraine is supposed to receive 50 units, given the simply deplorable state of Ukrainian air defense after 3 months of fighting with Russian troops. The German Gepards will be more than welcome. In this video, we will talk about this weapon and try to understand how effectively it can fight against the Russian forces. The German self-propelled anti-aircraft gun Gepard, or sometimes called the Gepard air defense tank, was developed in the mid-60s and early 70s and began to enter the Bundeswehr in 1973. It was the first German post-war design of an anti-aircraft self-propelled gun. The development was Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann, so it's a pretty old weapon. But there are many examples when, after repeated upgrades, weapon systems, even half a century old, remain in service, since their characteristics meet modern requirements. So let's take a closer look at this vehicle. Gepard is a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun of the military air defense with a close range. It is intended to escort and cover troops at bases on the march or in places of concentration. Depending on the situation and current requirements, the self-propelled gun can operate independently or as part of a battery under the control of a command post. It is built on the chassis of the Leopard 1 tank, due to which high mobility and cross-country characteristics are achieved. The machine is able to work in battle formations with other armored vehicles of German and foreign production. With a mass of more than 47 tons, the self-propelled gun develops a speed of up to 65 kilometers per hour and is able to move over rough terrain. The crew of the Gepard gun is 3 people: unit commander, driver, and gunner. The chassis is equipped with an original turret with mounted weapons, radar equipment, and other devices. The turret turning drive is electric. It is powered by a 40-kilowatt generator driven by a 4-cylinder Mercedes-Benz OM314 multi-fuel diesel engine with a power of 90 horsepower. The same engine is used to operate the ventilation system, fire control system, and radar, even when the main engine is not running. There are 35mm Swiss automatic guns, or Licken, GDF, on the sides of the tower. Their rate of fire is 550 RDS per minute each. That is, in total, this is 1,100 rounds per minute. Guidance of guns in the vertical plane is carried out in the range from -5 degrees to +85 degrees. The drive of the guns is completely electric, but in case of its failure, there are manual aiming mechanisms. Firing range is up to 5 kilometers, with height limit of 4 kilometers. Ammunition is 310 unitary cartridges per barrel, including 20 cartridges with an armor-piercing subcaliber projectile for hitting heavily armored ground targets, and 290 cartridges with high-explosive fragmentation shells. It is possible that the composition of the ammunition will change for Ukraine. A high-explosive fragmentation incendiary projectile, weighing 0.55 kilograms, of which 0.12 kilograms is an explosive, has an initial speed of 1175 meters per second, flight time at a distance of 1,000 meters in 1 second, at 2,000 meters, 2.17 seconds, and at 4,000 meters, 6.05 seconds. Each gun is equipped with a sensor that measures the muzzle velocity of the projectile and transmits this data to the onboard computer of the fire control system. In addition to 35mm cannons, blocks of smoke grenade launchers are installed on both sides of the tower, as a means of defense by creating a smoke screen. The basic German version of the Gepard is equipped with an S-band search radar with a rotating antenna and a Q-band fire control station with an oscillating antenna. The detection and tracking range for both stations is 15 to 18 kilometers. The modification for the Netherlands used other radars with different ranges, but with similar characteristics. Both stations operate independently of each other, which allows surveying the airspace and search for new objects simultaneously, with tracking the chosen target. For firing in conditions of widespread use of electronic warfare, the commander and gunner have optical sights with 1.5 and 6-fold magnification, and a field of view of 50 degrees and 12.5 degrees respectively. For aiming and determining the lead angles in the horizontal and vertical planes, based on information about the target movement parameters, the fire control system has 2 analog semiconductor computer devices, one of which is a backup. The calculation of data for firing is carried out, taking into account the angles of inclination of the SPOG body and the initial velocity of the projectiles, which is measured by special sensors installed on the muzzle of the barrels. The location of the workplace is in the main console, on which all the devices for displaying the air situation and fire control are grouped, making it possible to mutually duplicate the commander's and gunner's functions when firing. The commander of the ZSU evaluates the air situation, selects the most important target, the modes of operation of the radio instrument complex and firing, the type of ammunition, and also maintains external radio communications. The gunner solves the tasks of capturing, tracking, and hitting a target, transferring fire to other targets, reviewing the airspace in a given sector, using radar and optical means. The display system allows the commander and gunner to fire the calculated probabilities of hitting a target with an area of 5 meters squared with a 2-second burst, 36 shells that ranges of 4.3.2 and 1 kilometer, respectively, are 0.18, 0.27, 0.50, and 0.95. Navigation equipment provides determination of the direction of movement of the anti-aircraft gun, its current coordinates to take into account parallax in target designation, and take into account the movement of the SPAG along the course when calculating the trajectory of the projectile to the target. Aiming and firing are carried out in a semi-automatic mode under the control of the gunner-operator. A manual mode is also provided, including an optical sight. Recent upgrades of the Gepard SPAG have been aimed at improving target engagement with increased combat range, faster response time, and a greater chance of hitting and destroying the target. The main direction of the modernization program was the installation of new fire control systems, command control, a muzzle velocity measuring device, and the certification of new projectiles with a fragile armor-piercing FAPDS projectile. At one time, Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann developed a missile system for the Gepard, using the Stinger anti-aircraft missile system. The twin missile launcher was mounted on the side of the twin 35mm gun as a single unit. The system was tested but unfortunately was not deployed, due to financial constraints. For the ground forces of Germany, 420 Gepard SPAGs were built. Later they were ordered by the Army of the Netherlands. 95 vehicles with a modified radio-electronic complex were manufactured for them. Belgium received 55 products in the original configuration. Active exploitation of self-propelled guns Gepard continued until the 2000s, after which they began to be written off due to obsolescence. So the Bundeswehr completed this process in 2012. The equipment removed from service was sent for storage or sold to other countries. Used SPAGs entered service with Brazil, Jordan, Romania, and Chile. The latter, however, abandoned them soon. At the end of 2020, a contract appeared for the supply of 15 Gepards, ammunition, and spare parts to Qatar. They're planned to be used to ensure the safety of the future World Cup, which will be held in November-December 2022. So will Gepard help Ukraine? Let's start with the fact that this self-propelled anti-aircraft gun continued the negative tradition associated with the supply of German weapons to Ukraine. This process meets great difficulties. At first, it turned out that Germany no longer had stocks of ammunition for the Gepards. Let me remind you that the Bundeswehr wrote them off back in 2012. Therefore, it was originally planned to purchase shells from the manufacturer of guns for the Gepard, the Swiss company Oerlikon Contraves. But Switzerland, which maintains its neutrality, did not want to sell military products, which could soon be in the conflict zone. In the end, the issue of ammunition was solved. 300,000 shells will be purchased from Brazil, which has Gepards in service. However, now there are problems of a logistical nature. Before being sent to Ukraine, the ammunition will have to be transported across the ocean. The second and main problem is the lack of trained personnel. The Ukrainian army does not know how to operate Leopard 1 tanks and equipment based on them. This is especially true for the Gepards, which, not without reason, were considered the most complex armored vehicle of the Bundeswehr, and the operator training course for it was the longest. In the current situation, Ukraine simply does not have the time for full-fledged training of specialists, and without them, SPAGs will not provide any results. And the third problem. From the above, you understand that the Gepard is an outdated weapon. Despite repeated upgrades, in the 2010s they were withdrawn from service with NATO countries. The military decided that this SPAG could no longer deal with actual air threats, and therefore abandoned it. Over the recent years, this self-propelled gun has not become better, but new means of air attack with higher effectiveness have emerged. So what is the way out? After all, Ukraine needs air defense. Without it, the modern war cannot be won. This is confirmed by the course of the Russian-Ukrainian war. Russian aviation attacks around the clock, destroying manpower and equipment, with virtually no losses. Understanding this, the United States is going to supply Ukraine with its famous Patriot air defense system. But the Patriot alone is useless, even if it is supplied in sufficient quantities. Modern air defense should be many-echeloned. That is, the Patriots must be covered by close-range air defense systems. Otherwise, they will be destroyed by helicopters or drones flying below the Patriot's minimum target kill height, and it's 60 meters. And the Russian Su-25 can also fly below this limit. Now, in the Ukrainian army, the air defense function of the close range is performed by soldiers with American Stingers or British Starstreaks. But as you understand, it's very unreliable. Therefore, even the obsolete Gepard could significantly strengthen the Ukrainian air defense. Yes, it will not destroy a cruise missile or an air-to-surface missile, but it will work against a drone or a Russian attack aircraft, and it's necessary to invite former military personnel from Germany, the Netherlands, Brazil, etc. as Gepard operators, who have experience working on these vehicles. And the last, the West must finally understand that it's not just the fate of Ukraine being decided in this war, but the fate of the leadership of Western civilization, and all the privileges that are associated with this title. Therefore, they should supply Ukrainian troops with modern and not decommissioned weapons. Otherwise, caution and cowardice towards Russia could turn into a catastrophe for the Western world. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, so that as many people as possible can see it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. There will be many more interesting videos about modern weapons.